The oil platform will be named Petrohodovanets after the Ukrainian pioneer of oil and gas exploration on the Black Sea shelf. Producing our own natural gas and oil means reducing energy dependence on Russia. We have calculated that over the next 3 years we will be able to triple the amount of oil and gas produced at the Black Sea shelf, from 1 billion to 3 billion. This is quite realistic. Let's recall that last year Ukraine bought an oil rig produced by the Singaporean company Keppel, not directly, but through a fly-by-night British company called Highway Investments Processing. They bought the rig from Keppel for $250 million. And then they sold it to Ukraine for $400 million. And how to explain the Ukrainian roots of a shell company called Highway Investments and their fictitious directors, homeless people from Latvia? Not surprisingly, at the ribbon-cutting ceremony in Crimea, no one could find a representative of the seller, Highway Investments. Instead, a representative of the manufacturer Keppel arrived from Singapore, and he actually admitted the presence of unnecessary intermediaries in the purchasing scheme.
It is our hope and aim that now that we know Naftogaz, we'll be able to build directly for Naftogaz our new jackups as well as semi-submersible.
Ukrainian oil and gas leaders were prepared to answer questions regarding the overpayment of $150 million for the oil rig. How can one evaluate a platform without a technical audit? We will only have such a report in the coming days. The technical audit is being conducted by Halliburton, which does not require any further explanation. An extensive whitewash campaign has been put into play by Naftogaz. They have enlisted the support of the well-known American firm Halliburton. However, Halliburton has a mixed record, which is not all positive, but with several corruption scandals. Specifically, Halliburton, with the patronage of the U.S. government, had supplied fuel and equipment to the U.S. Army in Iraq at inflated prices. It is a known fact that Halliburton played a role in American geopolitics. The energy independence of Ukraine and the subsequent weakening of Russia's position is in the mutual interest of both Naftogaz and its new U.S. partner. We have at our disposal the Halliburton report. From the Halliburton report, the cost of one oil rig, $248 million. One Augusta helicopter, $21 million. Outfitting the rig with heating, $16.5 million. Working on assembling and dismantling the rig so it could pass under the Bosphorus, $53 million. And so on. In general, all goods and services came out to $393 million, almost reaching the $400 million mark. What does this mean? It's simple. After journalists had discovered the exorbitant overpayment, officials scrambled to begin to enter into additional agreements with their shell company Highway Investments. Needless to say, all these agreements were backdated. On September 5, 2011, we showed these agreements to Stan Gorin, the director of Highway Investments. He said he knew nothing about them or about his alleged signature on the contracts valued at over $400 million. And here we are. On September 12th, Chornomor Naftogaz signed an additional agreement with Highway Investments. We have this document in our possession. If the first contract with Highway had nothing to do with transport and modernization of the rig, now the British company is made responsible for delivering the rig from Singapore to Turkey. And this means all costs associated with installing and dismantling and so on. If as a result of this scandal, officials were prevented from pocketing kickbacks and were forced to foot the bill for helicopters and equipment for the state, we believe that this is a success. Ukrainian prosecutors should have been exploring each hryvnia of expenditure in this tender, but instead, they covered up the deal from the very beginning. However, infamously corrupt procurement of an oil rig went far beyond Ukraine. According to our data, the activities of the intermediary Highway Investments is being explored by the British police, where unsuccessful traders settled the company in place of mass registration. Secondly, opposition deputies from Butte prepared documents and submitted them to FATF, an international organization for combating money laundering. We were able to prove that the documents which were submitted for the tender were completely false, that these companies, like the tenderers, were fake, and most importantly, we were able to prove that there is a conspiracy among Ukrainian officials for which they must be held to account. Thirdly, Latvia. Our journalist Natalia Sidlecka was recently in Riga and once again decided to visit the director of the fictitious seller, Stan Gorin. In the offices of his brokerage firm, she found broken windows and, instead of a doorbell, just a burnt wire. He is very rarely here lately. I see the car sometimes, but other times he's on foot. What kind of car does he have? It was a red one. Currently, there is no car. Expensive? Oh, so you're here about that. Oh, that's all nonsense. I think if you were a millionaire, you would have other cars, other clothes, not walking around in rags. The fake Latvian directors of highway investments, Gorin and Vanagels, were questioned by Latvian financial police 6 months ago. Ironically, not with regard to the oil rig case, but one of vaccines that were purchased by the Tymoshenko government through the same fictitious persons at inflated prices. We found all the people they asked for. I've already told you, it was not easy. They were the front men, unreal. Therefore, they hid them. Or they were just homeless. We found them, and we have been searching for a long time. All the questions were asked which interested the Ukrainian side. The real business, as such, was not with these people. It was a fiction, so to speak. Money for the oil rigs to highway investments with its fictitious Latvian directors was also transferred to Latvia, to the bank account of its bank Tranzita Komertsbank. By the way, it's fully controlled by Ivan Forsin, a Ukrainian businessman and partner of Dmytro Firtash, whose political and business groups also include Yuri Boyko and Yevhen Bakulin. Tranzita Komertsbanka is now under strict attention of the Latvian police. The whole public service office is designed to track suspicious transactions of money laundering in this country, as there is a financial intelligence. Its head gave an interview to Znak Oklaku. A crime is a specific criminal activity. It does not matter whether this activity was accomplished by a resident or non-resident. If the activity was here in Latvia, then this case will be investigated and the questions will be decided. We will ask for the extradition of citizens of some states. This is as a result of the investigation. Latvian law enforcement is not allowed to divulge any details until the investigation is complete. However, there is no doubt that Ukrainian officials, taking advantage of front companies and individuals, got into a huge international corruption scandal